Well, Brian, thanks for taking some time. I just listened to your press conference here. The president extended the guidelines and regulations to the end of April. How does that affect what you're doing here in the city?
Well, the federal government is clearly the government that supersedes all other levels of government. So if the president does that, then we fall under that. So, it does influence our policy making at this level. When the federal government has certain restrictions, it does inhibit, things that we do within the local community and the local economy. So, and of course he has a stable of experts that are talking to him about some of these things. And so if he believes that that's best, then we're going to do what we can to support that. And so we'll probably see, our community not return to normal until after that point, just like probably everywhere else.
Right. And the president comes from a business background, and of course you guys are very pro-business in this city. What are you hearing from your business leaders here? You have a lot of them on city council. What's kind of the spirit here in Peachtree Corners, and what's your business community telling you?
Well, we have a very business-oriented city council, and they're very sensitive to things that can, affect the local economy, especially in a negative way. Their constant battle and challenge is to find a balance between taking measures to stop the spread of the coronavirus versus doing too much to where we may be unnecessarily harming the local economy.
Right.
Where is that balance? I don't know if anybody knows exactly for sure. So on a daily basis, we struggle sometimes with doing too much or too little. And I can assure you, regardless of which way we go, there's somebody who thinks that we're too far in one direction.
I mean, this is a struggle that you see the governors having this struggle. You see the president and his staff having this struggle. You're listening to the medical experts. You're listening to the business experts. So it's almost something you're adjusting on a daily basis.
It is. And, it's interesting, too. Even within similar industries, you have people who look at this different. We've had small business owners from the same exact industry be on having divergent perspectives on this. We've had ones who were like, at certain points, thank you for not forcing your will on us and letting us try to adjust to this. And others in the same industry who are saying, why aren't you closing us down? Because when you do, we can exercise clauses in our lease that allow us not to pay if we are shut down versus if we do it voluntarily. Right. So even the same industry, you have different business owners who are, some restaurants, even when it comes to carry out curbside delivery, they're like, nope, we're shutting down completely. Others are coming up with creative ways to do it. We've tried to do as little as we can, but yet still managing the community in a way that it's safe and mitigating, eliminating any interactions that we don't feel like have to happen.
Yep.
But again, it's a delicate balancing act, and sometimes we hit the mark, sometimes we don't, but we're not afraid to make adjustments, and we can quickly. The way we issued our stay-at-home order is through executive order. And that executive order can change. I can change it without having to go to another formal city council meeting.
Right.
So if we need to flex in any way, whether it's more or less, restrictive, we can do so very quickly. So that's what we're trying to do.
How important is the community? One of the things I've learned through all this is that actually that restaurants are the number one employer, the food business, if you will, is the number one employer in the country. And they've been pretty hard hit. How important is it for the community to, get curbside service at the restaurants that have decided to stay open?
Well, local economy is really a very, very important part of a community. It's where, the local economy is what comprises where people go to be entertained, where people go to gather and socialize with others. And, restaurants are certainly a very important cog in that wheel. And so we have a lot of restaurants here. And, those restaurants have gotten, and the community has gotten used to having lots of options, lots of opportunities to go places and socialize with their neighbors and others in the community. And so it's been tough. I mean, a lot of the restaurant owners are our neighbors too. Their kids are in school with us, and so we see them going through this difficult time, and it's painful to watch.
Right.
The community is rallying. It's always, you hate to have to go through these times to see it, but the community is really rallying around trying to do everything we can for the local economy. For instance, the restaurants that are doing curbside and delivery or takeout, they're creating specials, and they're creating things like a meal that includes a roll of toilet paper or a meal that includes a bottle of wine.
Right.
And the city's done what it needs to loosen restrictions on restaurants' ability to sell things like alcohol for off-premise consumption.
Right.
But then the community is doing a really good job of sending out information about who's doing what. Here's a great special. Here's what this restaurant's doing. And encouraging people, even if they don't have to, is to go out and do that. You could have plenty of food at home. You're like, oh, we don't need to. But hey, take an opportunity on an evening or whatever to have the family go and eat takeout from a restaurant to support the local restaurant versus having gone to the grocery store and doing everything at home. And so it's pretty cool to go and drive around, and even though the city is to a degree a ghost town when it comes to activity, you go to some of these restaurants and there's a line of people waiting on their order to come. They're of course not closer than 6 feet from each other, but
Right,
there's
of course.
a line waiting on the takeout that they've ordered, and that's great to see.
So let's talk a little bit about exercise, because you handled some of that in your press conference and explained we dealt with the tennis situation because this is a big tennis community and there's some concerns. But let's talk specifically about running, cycling, hiking, those kind of things. Now, you're still allowing those, is that correct, for health?
So in the executive order, there is an essential activity that we consider as exercise. And so we do believe that, people getting out and into the fresh air to do things like walking, running, cycling, physical training of some sort are important. Now, when we say that, though, we also say that to do so, they still need to meet other restrictions that are within the executive order, which is not gathering in groups outside of the family unit.
Right.
And so if you're exercising, but your exercise involves you gathering with people outside of the family unit, that is not allowed.
I've seen the local bicycle club rides have all been disbanded.
That's correct, because what's the point in drafting? Or you can't draft if you're outside of 6 feet.
Well, triathletes have to do it.
Right,
so.
that's true. So it's a big time trial for everybody.
It's a big time trial. Speaking of time trials, one of the things we talked about on one of the Instagram posts is I asked you about the autonomous vehicle lane here at Curiosity Lab, which you said it's okay to ride our bikes there.
It is.
And that's a really safe place. If somebody's looking for a place to exercise safely, that autonomous vehicle lane right now, there's not a lot of traffic on Technology Parkway, but even when there is, that lane's a real safe place to do it.
We have a 3-mile loop
Right.
that has a separated lane, separated from the motoring public with flexible bollards and plastic curb. And it is a safe place because no vehicle can be in that lane without having permission from us, and it would be an advanced vehicle, and there would be a lot of regulation around it. And so right now, with it not being used, it's a great place to come in and do some things, especially since in the 1.5 miles you have you've got grade or elevation change.
Right.
So
it's pretty
you can
challenging.
Get some, so you can get some decent hill work.
Right.
And it's also a good way to challenge yourself, because then you can time how fast you're doing these loops, and it can continue to motivate you, since you're, if you're not riding in a group where you've got, the challenge of keeping up with the group, or,
Right.
breakaways or whatever. If you're doing it by yourself, sometimes it's hard for people to be challenged. Well, this way you can challenge yourself by trying to beat the best time that you've had on that loop.
Right. And, I think it's important that people get out because, the last week or so, you start hearing the mental health component being talked about people, getting real antsy about being in, about, feeling locked up and everything. And I think it's good that people get out, and it's a great way to exercise and get a little mental clarity, I think.
It is, we agree. I mean, so, it's always hard. There's always exceptions. People are like, well, what about this? What about that? There's just a lot of, instances in which you're like, that's a tough one. Two people that aren't in the same family unit, but they want to play, horse on the basketball court. We've had that. I know. I mean,
they're sharing a ball, though. That's
right, but they're sharing a ball, and that's oftentimes what's driving the tennis.
Right.
The tennis question is, well, if you were playing, singles tennis, you are going to be 6 feet apart from one another. Why couldn't you do that? Problem is a tennis ball can be a vector,
right, because
a
you're holding it to
vehicle
serve
of germs, and at least it hasn't been proven that it isn't.
Right.
And so if we're both touching the same and you happen to have the virus, I could catch it because, there's just a lot of, you're sweating and you're touching the same. And so
Yeah.
Those tend to be the things that we try to, so, on exercise, if you just don't touch things that others are touching, we encourage it.
Right. I know the other day we saw a father and son playing a little soccer out at the park, and I thought, with a soccer ball, that's probably a little safer than throwing a football or frisbee around, because you're using your feet, obviously. Just make sure just one person picks it up and that type of thing. But
although the family unit, though,
the family unit, they're fine, that father and son. But what about the parks? Are the parks going to stay open?
Our parks are staying open. Gwinnett County has closed some, and but our the areas that the public can go, we're keeping them open, like our multi-use trails and everything. We just are encouraging, again, to maintain the 6 feet of separation.
Right.
And but it's hard to oftentimes do that. The reason Gwinnett County closed some of their big parks is because people were not respecting that distance, and so they're going out there and having a lot of interactions closer than 6 feet. And, I know down in Atlanta, the Beltline is struggling with that too.
Right.
Is just so many people are using it. We don't have that here quite yet. So right now we're allowing it. But again, let's hope that we don't have to change
but
on
you
that.
reserve the right to change.
We do. I mean, if people are not respecting, the sooner that we can get past this hump, this flattening of the curve,
right,
the sooner we can get back to normal. And so, if people keep ignoring it, it's just going to prolong this, unnecessarily. And so we may, but let's hope our citizens are wise enough to say, no, we can use it, but we can do it right.
Now, we just talked, we're going to do updates. You're going to do a live broadcast Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, 11 a.m.
Correct.
Right, to update people, answer people's questions.
Yep.
So we're going to keep doing that. Let's talk about Curiosity Lab. Curiosity Lab is obviously a big thing for the city. You guys have been voted top smart city in the country by certain magazines. You guys were a big hit in Barcelona at the Smart City World Conference. Where's Curiosity Lab stand right now, and what's your thoughts on when things start easing up? I mean, imagine that's just going to take off like a rocket because of not only pent-up demand, but if anything, this virus has proven how important technology is.
Yes, it's a good point. There is a lot of interesting technology, or companies that have interesting technology that are starting to say, hey, can we do some things that we've been accelerating our development. But Curiosity Lab, when it comes to companies using it, has slowed down just because of the restrictions on travel, the restrictions on congregating of people. So we had the teleoperated e-scooters that had been getting ready to actually
there was a big press event that was going to be.
We were going to have a big media event to show off this technology and to make all 100 e-scooters available to the public to come out and ride and everything. And we had to put that on hold. We haven't stopped. So there's a lot of interactions with organizations that are interested in doing things here. Everything from educational institutions like Gwinnett Tech. Gwinnett Tech is looking to maybe have some of their automotive repair. They have a new pipeline starting up there in advanced vehicle automotive repair.
Right.
And, we're talking to them about maybe them doing stuff here and other. So there's a lot of companies queuing up.
Right.
And when this thing lifts, the floodgates are going to open and we're going to have a lot of activity.
Yeah, I can't see it not. I mean, even the scooter guys, I feel bad for them because, I mean, they got amazing technology. Some of it probably could have helped with all of the things that are going on now as far as being able to remote.
Well, we talked about, we've been on a call, is maybe you get off the scooter and then they, through teleoperation, drive it to a docking station where it can get sanitized.
Right.
For the next person.
Yeah.
And so it could have potentially
Yeah, because I know Bird and Lime and some of the other folks, the big scooter operators, had to kind of stop because of that possibility of transference. So, in sharing a scooter, I know that, the teleoperated scooter has some advantages,
We also have a company, a startup that is inside of the Innovation Center that has a device that sanitizes and destroys germs, and it was initially created to destroy the germs that are on athletic equipment, to sterilize athletic equipment. And it's currently undergoing testing to see if it can sterilize and kill the coronavirus.
Awesome.
And so, we may, end up having a company that has a presence in the Innovation Center that has a technology that might help, kill the virus, or at least sanitize things that have it on there. So, a lot of companies are doing a lot of things in tech because what is it that, the mother of all invention is, the desperation, that you have in some instances. And so
my father-in-law said that humans really only learn through trauma. And, and we're in a traumatic experience right now, and people are really, bringing out their best. I think companies are, coming out with new technologies, and I can't imagine even 10 years ago, if we'd had this, just being able to communicate with our loved ones. Now we have Facebook, we have FaceTime, we have all these amazing technologies that make us not feel so isolated. And I can't even imagine what people would have thought, we're going to quarantine basically the country. You're going to stay in place for 45 days. Imagine that 10 years ago without the mass communications that we have now.
It would have been a lot more difficult.
A lot more. Well, Brian, thank you for your time. We'll talk some more, maybe Wednesday, Friday. I know that you're going to do your broadcast. Folks, if you guys got questions during the live broadcast, just put them in the comments and Brian will address them. In the meantime, stay healthy, wash your hands all the time, try not to touch your face, and stay healthy out there. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks.